Uh, Let us prepare for the word this morning. We're going to continue our conversation about the great questions that God is asking of us. And I guess that's why a young sister asked the question, ain't I a woman? We have another question for you this morning. And we're going to find it in the book of Exodus as we stand and open our Bibles to the 14th chapter of the book of Exodus. We do a brief check, make sure everybody's glad to be here this morning. Glad to be able to be here this morning. Give 3 people a fist bump. Tell them I'm glad to see you. Yes. We welcome also those of you who are viewing us by live streaming. Certainly we're glad you have taken the time to share in our worship experience. Those of you who may be disabled or maybe stumbling upon us for the first time or maybe viewing from another part of the world, we appreciate your presence. Those of you who are members of the family here at Morning Star, you still have time to get here for the second service. And we'll be looking for you. You know, I found out that, and God is always trying to teach us and instruct us around the importance of coming together. And as magnificent as the technology is, and as wonderful as the technology is, and it does serve a purpose, it does not replace our coming together. And not only does it not replace our coming together, it cannot replace our coming together. It cannot. For we are known as the body of Christ. And the body cannot function with disparate parts. A body cannot function with its parts scattered everywhere. Amen. You say, but Pastor, everybody, deserves a little break here and there. Well. Consider this. If we were to take one of your kidneys out of your body, now the body could still function with one kidney. Right? If we were to take one of your lungs out of your body, the body could still function with one of your lungs. If we were to take one of your arms or one of your legs from your body, the body could still function with one arm or one leg or one hand or one foot. Now, as you know, the body would be compromised. So we work better together. Say we work better together. That's why we love to see you come together. That's why it's important to come together. Now, but this is the thing that people miss. You thought that was the whole story, but it's not. The whole story is this. The kidney, that one kidney that's out that compromises the function of the body, what we forget is that that kidney, if it's not connected to the body, the kidney dies. The lung, though the body can function without it, when the lung is separated from the body, the lung dies. The arm, the leg, the foot, the hand that are separated from the body, though the body can work without it, the arm, the leg, the hand, the foot, they die. And we're not about death here. We want every body part to live. We want the arms to live, the legs to live, the lungs to live, the kidneys to live, the eyes to live, the ears to live, the tongue to live. We want the whole body to live. So y'all come on to church now. See you next Sunday. Tell 3 people, keep coming and live, keep coming and live, keep coming and live. You cannot live righteously outside of the context of the body. That's why God puts us in bodies. Not so you can sit home and look at some machine. You got to come here. Let some blood flow through you. Amen. Come on, tell somebody, ain't I a Christian? Get yourself up on in here and worship God as a whole body. Amen. Where are we supposed to be now? What did I say? Exodus, I think, right? Exodus 14, that's right. Thank you. Yes. Those of you who are still watching. Exodus 14. We're going to start reading at the first verse, but actually we want to precede it with verses 21 and 22 of Exodus 13. From the English Standard Version, it goes as follows. It says, verse 21 of 13 says, And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them along the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, that they might travel by day and by night. Verse 22 of chapter 13 of Exodus, the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night did not depart from before the people. Verse 1, chapter 14, then the Lord said to Moses, tell the people of Israel, and listen carefully now, tell the people of Israel to turn back and encamp in front of, try not to get too hung up on the names. The names are rather polysyllabic and convoluted, but just try to get, as best you can, get the picture. Tell the people of Israel to turn back and encamp in front of Pihahiroth, between Migdol and the sea in front of Baal Zephon. You shall encamp facing it by the sea. For Pharaoh will say of the people of Israel, they are wandering in the land, the wilderness has shut them in. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them, and I will get glory over Pharaoh and all his host. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord. And they did so. And when the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, the mind of Pharaoh and his servants was changed toward the people, and they said, what is this that we have done? We have let Israel go from serving us. So he made ready his chariot and took his army with him, and took 600 chosen chariots and all of the other chariots in Egypt with officers over all of them. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued the people of Israel while the people of Israel were going out defiantly. The Egyptians pursued them, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots and his horsemen and his army, and overtook them encamped at the sea by Pihahiroth in front of Baal Zephon. And when Pharaoh drew near, the people of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians were marching after them, and they feared greatly. And the people of Israel cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Is it because there are no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? What have you done to us in bringing us out of Egypt? Is not this what we said to you in Egypt? Leave us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness." And Moses said to the people, "Listen, don't be afraid. Stand firm. See the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent." And verse 15, which is our focus verse, the Lord said to Moses, "Why do you cry to me? Tell the people of Israel to go forward." The word of God for the people of God. Speak, God, to your servant, through your servant, to your people. Decrease our presence, increase yours. In the name of Jesus, let nobody leave here the same way that they came. We make this prayer and count it done by faith in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen. Tell somebody as you take your seat, God does not change. God does not change. As we continue this exploration of questions, it's been very instructive and inspirational to me, and hopefully a learning experience for all of us. And one of the things that I've come to see clearly now is that when God is asking a question, it always means that man at some level is facing a crisis. Interesting thing. If God is asking man a question, that means that man at some level is facing a crisis. And that's an important point there. And you can monitor that as you look at the questions that God asks of man throughout Scripture. Whether the question is, where are you? Where are you, as God asked of Adam? And Adam, as you know, was facing a crisis in his relationship with God. Or the question is, Cain, where is your brother? Cain was facing a crisis in his family. Or the question is that he asked of Abram, is anything too hard for God? Abram was facing a crisis in his faith. Or the question is that he asked of Moses, Moses, what's that in your hand? Moses was facing a crisis of courage, a crisis of self-worth, a crisis of self-confidence. So that when God is asking a question of mankind, usually there is a crisis that mankind is facing, and the purpose of the question is to get the man to see, or the human being to see, and understand what that crisis is all about. And so today's question is, why are you crying out to me? Why are you crying out to me? And so we want to come away with an understanding of what is this crisis that must be here, since there is a question that God is asking of the participants here. If God is asking a question of mankind, mankind is facing a crisis of some kind. And so we might begin with understanding, well, what is a crisis? What does that mean? See, a crisis is a turning point. It's a turning point for better or for worse. A crisis is a point in your life where you gotta go one way or the other. You got to go one way or the other, and it's going to be towards the better or towards worse. A crisis is a critical juncture. It's a crucial point. It's a a crucial time. It's a time of great danger. It's a time of a great dilemma. In fact, the word crisis comes from the Greek word, which is spelled Krisis, crisis, and it simply means decision. It's a time for a major decision. Say it's decision time. And so some would call it a moment of truth, if you will. The point is that a crisis is a very important time period, a turning point, a moment of truth, a decision-making time, a critical juncture, a dilemma in the life of human beings. And you know there's one going on if God is asking man a question. And here in the 14th chapter of the book of Exodus, we have exactly that. We have exactly that. Following the words and the commands of God, Moses has led the people to a point where now they have adverse routes on each side of them, mountains on each side of them. The Red Sea is in front of them, and the Egyptians with their chariots are coming up behind them. And their past is quickly approaching them as Pharaoh has now changed his mind because God, as he said he would do, has hardened his heart and changed his mind and said, what have we done? Let's go get these slaves back so they can continue to serve us. And so that now we have the Egyptians at a point where the Red Sea is in front, the mountains on each side, the Egyptians are in back, and they are surrounded. They are beset on every side. And this situation reflects the words that Paul would later write to the Corinthians in 2 Corinthians 4 and 7, where he says, we have this treasure in earthen vessels, that the excellency of the power may be of God and not of ourselves. We are troubled and hard-pressed on every side, yet we're not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not forsaken. We are cast down, but not destroyed, always bearing about the death of the body of Jesus in our lives, so that we can also manifest simultaneously the life of the body of Jesus Christ in our lives. Surrounded by nothing but trouble. Every place you look, there's difficulty. Every place you look, there is a pain, there is agony, there is hardship, there is adversity. There is disappointment, there is distress, there is despair, and on top of that, the situation is further complicated by the fact that this bad situation is God ordained. This bad situation is God directed. The knowledge of that makes this situation even worse for God's people. For as we see in Exodus 14, the first 3 verses of the 14th chapter, God says to Moses, I want you to lead the people this way and go that way and go this way, such that when Pharaoh sees where you are, Pharaoh will think that you are confused, that you don't know where you're going, and that you're locked up on both sides, trapped by the Red Sea in front of you, and my chariots coming up from the rear. God did not just allow this situation to happen. He planned it. He prescribed it. He orchestrated it. And he did it all for his glory. That's why he says in the 4th verse of Exodus 14, he says, I will get glory over Pharaoh and all his host, and the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord. And this tells us that, when it's all said and done, after all this foolishness that we go through down here on earth, sooner or later, for some and for others, God will be known as God. And it may as well be sooner for those of you who are waiting for later. I would advise that you get it sooner than later, because it is going to come. You will know that God is God, for there is no name above that name, and that name is Jesus. Somebody say Jesus. Jesus. Now what's interesting here is that we are all here to fill the prescriptions for God's glory. That's our role. We're here to fulfill the prescriptions for God's glory. Much of what many of us are going through right now, we are going through to bring God glory. So, I know that doesn't make the pain any less. It doesn't make the sorrow any less or the difficulty any less. But it does help sometimes to inspire you to go through it when you understand that there's a reason, a higher reason for why you're going through it. You're not just going through it because there's some mean, old, nasty, ugly joker somewhere. No, you're going through it because God has planned it, God has prescribed it, God is orchestrating it so that you can fulfill a prescription for His glory. Say, I'm here to glorify God. Say it again, I'm here to glorify God. Say, all I do to bring God glory. One more time. All I do to bring God glory. Yeah, see, I usher to glorify God. I sing to glorify God. I serve to glorify God. I teach to glorify God. I preach to glorify God. I deacon to glorify God. I trustee to glorify God. I cook to glorify God. I'm hospitable to glorify God. I play my instrument to glorify God. I praise God to glorify God. I worship God to glorify God. I'm here to bring God glory. Somebody ought to give God some praise right about there. Tell two people, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. To glorify God. Yes. Now, what's interesting is that the journey that we're on, you see, the journey that we're on, the hardships, oftentimes, the hardships and the troubles and the trials and the struggles that we are confronted with, oftentimes, they are a function of the journey that we're on and the route that we're taking. You do know that there are some routes that are shorter than others. There's some routes that are easier than others. I was in a recent conversation with somebody, and they were saying, and I can remember talking with my father about going back and forth from Philadelphia to New Jersey, and we were talking about, the challenge of getting, from Philadelphia to New Jersey without paying any tolls. You can do it. You can. It's going to take you a couple of days, but you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. You can come up 1 and 9, and there's a red light every 2 blocks. Not every 2 blocks, but Or you can get, hit the highway, hit the 95 and the other highways or whatever, the turnpike and so forth, and it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you a little bit more. But you're going to get there sooner. So different routes have different costs associated with them. You follow what I'm saying? And so that the journey that we're on has a price tag, if you will. And the people of Israel here in this 14th chapter of the book of Exodus, they are on a journey to their best selves ever. Because they're coming out of slavery and they're headed to the promised land. So they're coming from nothing, headed towards something. Coming from where they're disrespected to going to the place where they can be quite respected. Coming from where they're totally dependent to where they can be independent and interdependent. Are you following me? Coming to where they own nothing to where they own everything. Coming to where they grow nothing for themselves to where they grow everything for themselves. Coming from where they have to depend on somebody else for everything that they get to where they depend on themselves for everything that they do. Are you following what I'm saying? So they're coming into their best selves ever. And God, that's the journey that God wants His people to be on. That's one of the lessons we get. God wants us to be on the journey to your best self ever. Whenever, wherever, all the time, God wants us to be on the journey to our best selves ever. Because you cannot beat being on the journey to your best self ever. That's the journey that God wants you to be on. But that journey has tolls. You can't succeed in this journey by avoiding paying tolls. You're going to pay a price on this journey. And you may have to make a turn here and there. But you're gonna pay. You can't get on this journey and expect to have smooth sailing and get there with no difficulty. But it is your best journey ever. Are you listening to me? Come on, tell somebody, stay on the road now. Stay on the road. Yeah. The journey to our best year ever is the journey that will bring God the most glory. And to achieve this journey, as best as possible, we must take the route that God plans. We got to take the route that God prescribes. We got to take the route that God orchestrates. And notice here that God orchestrated a more difficult route than would have been orchestrated by the people themselves. See, the way that God plans, the way that God prescribes, is the way that brings him the most glory. And we got to understand this. God's way is the hard way. Amen. 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 I thought when I got saved, I was going to have an easier life. I thought when I got saved and God was on my side that people would leave me alone because they knew God was on my side. God's way is the hard way. God's way is the rough way. God's way is the difficult way. God's way is the most challenging way. God's way is the long way. God's way is the most troublesome way. God's way is the way that's perceived as being impossible, inconceivable, unachievable, unimaginable. You can't even do it. That's where the people were. That's why Pharaoh was chasing them. Because Pharaoh said, I got them right where I want them. They can't go that way. Mountains. Can't go that way. Mountains. Certainly can't go that way because they can't walk on water. And then I know they ain't coming back here. Because that's just what I want them to do. I got them. And the people themselves, the people of Israel, God's people, our people, headed towards their best selves ever, they're in a situation where they're now saying, Jesus Christ, Moses, didn't we tell you to leave us alone? We told you we'd rather serve the Egyptians than come out here and die in the wilderness. Are there no graves in Egypt? You had to bring us out here? Trapped. And then the people cried out to God. And the word says they cried out in great fear. Now, this is an interesting thing here. They cried out in great fear because the situation they were in, they considered it to be impossible, inconceivable, unachievable, unattainable, even unimaginable. And if truth be told, many of us have found ourselves in situations like that. But when we're in that kind of situation, the word is teaching us that's where God gets the most glory. The situation that is now out of your hands. Something that you can't do anything about. You have no idea what to do, how to do it, which way to turn, who to call, who to text. You don't know what in the world is going to happen next. And the best you could do is just stand. God's way is the way that will make you say, why me? Why this? Why now? Why couldn't I avoid this? I can't do this. Can I do this another way? God's way is the way that nobody thought could be done. Nobody chooses to do that. That it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. It it makes you seem a little crazy. It will shake the foundations of the chains that have you locked down. God's way is the way that will make you change the way you think, change what you believe, change the way you live. God's way is where you say, if it's going to be done, God is going to have to do it. God's way is where that once it's done, all that can be said is, it had to be God. See, God's way is the way that Jesus dealt with Lazarus. The sisters called for him when he was sick, but Jesus waited. You remember that, right? Jesus waited. Could have come early, but he waited. He waited on purpose because he said, this sickness is not unto death, but this sickness is for the glory of God. Waited till he died, was died, buried 4 days. And then Jesus showed up. And then Martha and Mary had a lot of mouth. Not like us. We would have been more holy. But Martha said, Jesus Christ. If you had only been here, my brother would not have died. And I'm sure that she said she added some other things, but they didn't have room to write all that. Probably added some other things like, but no. Because I know she had some sister in her. I know she did. I know. But no, you couldn't come when we asked you to come. Now look. And Jesus said, Martha, just chill. Just chill. God's way is the way that he dealt with Elijah. And when he said, I want you to go down to the brook of Cherith. I got some birds who are going to feed you. I want you to imagine what you would think if there's a famine and there's no water and there's no food anywhere, and God tells you to go somewhere because I've instructed some birds to feed you. We can't sit here and act like we are holy enough to just believe that without questioning. You've got to be out of your mind. You've got to be crazy. Birds and Negroes? If the Negro saw a bird, he'd eat it. What? He'd be fried in a minute. How you gonna feed somebody and you are cooked? And then when your brook dries up, Elijah, when your brook dries up, I want you to go down to Zarephath because I have instructed a widow there. A widow who is destitute herself, looking for sticks to fix her last meal for her son and herself so that she could die. She's going to feed you. You couldn't have, God as powerful as you are, you couldn't have found somebody else who had a little more? That's the only one you could find? No. He could have found somebody else, but you see, God planned it. God prescribed it. God orchestrated it. And it's all to his glory. This is God's way. God's way is the way that he dealt with Jericho. No fighting, just walk around and then give God some praise and watch those walls come down. I need you to trust me. I need you to believe me. God's way is the way that God treated the Hebrew boys. Look, you're not going to be able to avoid this fire. You're going to have to go in it. But don't worry about it. I'm going to be right in there with it, and I'm going to be your Teflon. Nothing's going to bother you. You're going to go in and you're going to come out. And I'm going to be in there with you. God's way is the way he dealt with Harriet Tubman. Listen, I know you can't read. I know you can't write. I know they call you ugly. I know they call you stupid, but you are cute enough to be free. Just follow me. Just follow me. God's way is the way he dealt with these people here as he's dealing with Moses and the people. Moses, I want you to go this strange way here. I want you to find yourself encamped by the sea so that when Pharaoh sees you, he will declare that he's got you right where he wants you. And then when the people see where you are, the people will be clear that where they are right now, they're in an impossible situation. And the people will declare that we can't do it. It can't be done. We are done. We have failed. We are defeated. We give up. We are bankrupt. We are unsuccessful. We are out. We are done. And then in Exodus 14 and 10, it says the people feared greatly. And they cried out to the Lord. And then around verse 13, Moses says to the people, listen, you don't need to be quiet. Be still and experience the salvation of the Lord. These Egyptians that you see today, you're not going to see them anymore. God is going to win this battle. And then in the 15th verse, it says, God said to Moses, Moses, why do you cry out to me? Now, this troubled me greatly. Why do you cry out to me? Tell the people to go forward. Now, this question is a question of a decision. It's a question of action, but not any action. See, this is a question of persistence. This is a question of endurance. This is a question of, are you going to give up or are you going to keep going? This is a serious question here. It's a question about making a decision to keep going despite the fact that you see nowhere to go. This is a hard question here. Why are you crying out to me? Why are you crying out to me? Now, and frankly, when I first read it, it seemed to me to be a bit cold-blooded. Now, maybe you all are deep enough spiritually to handle it, but it seems to me to be a bit cold-blooded. Now, and cold-blooded because why? Because the people have been following the words and the commands of God to the situation where they are. God planned this. He prescribed this. He orchestrated this. He's the one that said, I want you to go this way, that way, and put yourself right here in front of the Red Sea where you can't get across, can't go that way, and you certainly can't go back because here comes Pharaoh. And then he has the nerve to say, when the people complain, he has the nerve. Yes, I said God has the nerve to say, why are you crying out to me? Well, excuse me, God. Excuse me, God. Now, I know y'all are holy enough to handle it. I couldn't handle it. Here I am following what you asked me to do. I've been doing everything you asked me to do, going everywhere you asked me to go, finding every place you asked me to find, and here I am right where you said I'm trapped. And now I got no place to go. Now all my decisions are bad decisions. All my directions are bad directions. All my options are bad options. All my decisions have bad consequences. All my avenues are filled with adversity. All my pathways are problematic, and I'm asking you for help, and you're asking me, why am I crying out to you? I'm trapped here. I'm surrounded. Trouble on every side. Maybe I should back up and ask a question. Anybody here ever felt trapped? I mean, you if you go this way, there's trouble. If you go that way, there's trouble. If you go this way, there's trouble. If you go that way, it's trouble. Anybody ever, you try to do this bit to help and you get negative feedback. You try to do that to help and you get negative feedback. You try to go that way, you get help and you get negative feedback. Every place you go, every direction you turn it, everything comes back negative and bad with horrible consequences. And you get the feeling of being trapped. Now, feeling trapped it's a feeling of helplessness, powerlessness, and sometimes hopelessness. And God is asking me, why are you crying out? Ooh, Jesus. I had to pray over this one. Why am I crying out to you? Have you ever felt like you got a loved one who is sick and you want to help them, but you don't have a cure and there's nothing you can do? You've done all you can, but they get sicker? Trapped. Why? It's small places that make us feel trapped, places that confine us and constrict us and constrain us. We feel limited and locked in, and we want to break out. We feel like we can't breathe because there's nothing we can do to help relieve the situation. Sometimes it expresses itself in something we call claustrophobia, where people will feel trapped in an elevator or trapped in an airplane or sometimes trapped in a closet or trapped in their house or trapped in a neighborhood. And sometimes we feel in relationships. People will feel trapped in a relationship. You know, I want to get out, but I'm afraid to be alone. I'm tired of the psycho-emotional abuse, but I don't want to be by myself. I want to move to a better neighborhood, but I can't save enough money. Trapped. Feeling hopeless and helpless and powerless. And when you're feeling this way, helpless, powerless, hopeless, what people normally do is cry out for help, which is exactly what the people did here. And then God asked them, why do you cry out to me? Wow. Boy, I said, God, you, sometimes you're just too much for me. But I believe he's asking this question because he wants them to know. Have you lost your mind? See, because it is a rather frank and cold-blooded and hard-hearted question. Listen to it. Why are you crying out to me under these circumstances? So he's coming back real hard at a people who feel very desperate. And so it's a very firm comeback. And it seems to me that he's saying to the people, have you lost your mind? Have you forgotten this quickly, that easily, who I am? Do you know how you got to where you are now? Do you know that you are not in chains? Do you know that you are not in slavery? Do you know that, have you forgotten the plagues that I brought you through? Have you forgotten the plague of the blood, of the frogs, of the lice, of the boils, of the locusts? Have you forgotten the plagues of the darkness, the plagues of the pestilence, the plagues of the death of the firstborn of all the Israelites and all their stock, and I kept you from all of that? Have you forgotten the plagues of the debt and of the doubt and the distress and the discontent and the sorrow and the plagues of sadness and the plagues of disobedient children and bad relationships, the plagues of divorce, the plagues of despair, the plagues of depression, the plagues of addiction, the plagues of uncertainty, the plagues of doubt, the plagues of lust, the plagues of laziness, the plagues of lies, the plagues of gossip. Have you forgotten all of those plagues that I covered you from? Have you lost your minds? Have you forgotten all of the miracles that I have performed in your life? Do you know that God never backs up? He never backs down. He never backs out. And he never backs off. Do you think I brought you this far to leave you? Do you think I don't have another option? Why are you crying out to me? I'm not finished with you yet. I didn't bring you here to be killed. I brought you here to be delivered. Do you know who I am? I am God, and I do not change. Everybody stand. The altar is open. The altar is open. The altar is open. Sometimes we need to be reminded of who God is. Sometimes we need to remember all of what God has brought us through. Sometimes we forget that it's been so routine. God has delivered us through so many plagues, brought us through so many challenges, brought us through so many difficulties that we just kind of take it for granted. And we lose sight of the fact that the reason we are where we are, clothed and in our right mind, is because of that God that we're now calling on and crying out to, and not appreciating that he has never left you. He has never left you. He's right there with you. God is an awesome God. And so when we find ourselves at these critical junctures, at these turning points, where we could go one way or the other, it's important, if you don't know which way to turn, you don't know which way to go, just stand. Be still and stand and just say, God, if it's going to happen, you have to make it happen. And I'm telling you, he'll make a difference in your life. He'll make a difference. He'll turn things around for you. He'll move things out of the way for you. God is a God who can make a way out of no way. And how quickly do we forget that time just a little while ago when we didn't know how things are going to turn out. In fact, we thought all was lost. We just thought all was lost, and yet here you are.
Yes, thank you, Lord.
Moving on. And God says, I'm the same God. I'm the same God. That's what Malachi 3:6 says. I am the same God, and I do not change. I am the same God, The one that got you out of your last trouble. That was me. That was me that got you out of that last trouble. I'm the same God. So you don't need to be crying out to me. You just need to keep believing and keep following. Amen. Heads bowed, eyes closed. If you're here and you've not yet made a decision to be a follower of Jesus the Christ, make that decision today. Make that decision today. Decide to be a disciple of Christ. Your life will be blessed. Your life will be changed. Your life will be transformed. And it will all be for the better, and it will all be for the glory of God. Is there anybody here who'd like to make that decision today? You want to become a believer in Jesus Christ. You want to be in receipt of salvation. If you raise your hand, we'll pray with you, and you don't have to leave here in the same condition in which you came. Is there anybody here who'd like to accept Jesus Christ today? We want to give you place and space to do just that. God bless you, God bless you, God bless you, God bless you. Father God, in the mighty and the matchless name of your Son, Jesus, you know these, your people. Speak to them. Let them know. Let them know. Let them be clear that as you say in your word, you'll never leave them nor will you forsake them. You'll be with them all the way. Please, Lord, somebody needs to hear from you right now. Somebody needs to hear from you right now. The circumstances are bad. They're surrounded and they're beset on every side. And you know, in the human condition, Lord, sometimes we lose sight of the fact of how we got where we are. Speak now, Lord, and let them know that you are God. You do not change, and you can make a way out of no way. And it's already happening. And God, we thank you for it. We thank you for it right now in the name of Jesus. And God's people came into agreement by saying amen, amen, and amen. Give God praise and answer prayer. No idea how you're going to get out of it. And yet here you are. Remember, God does not change. Return.